And I have been most entranced when I hear you tell these stories. If you tell a few of them,
we can go. The last story, of course, was the most remarkable, was finding the book of my grandfather. Everywhere we went, there was something magical happen. The books, we would never find books if not a magic happened. We are shooting in Bardejov, and there's many people here from Bardejov, surprisingly.
Probably more people here from Bardejov than
in Bardejov. And somebody found out that we are in the town. The man knocked on the door and said, I have to show you something. I know these people you photograph, I live in the same building, but please, 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes, I would like to show you something. And Katya, being on time always, and I was willing to go, of course, but not just we have no time. I'm sorry we don't have time, but I can give you tomorrow morning 10 minutes, and you show us what you want, and then we go. And sure enough, he took us to this magical place, which was a cheder, Jewish school, which was preserved since World War II. And how it was preserved was a miracle by itself. I assumed that after the war, half of the town was Jewish, so there was lots of real estate. And somehow, even communists left this building alone. And this one man, a Jewish man, who had the key to the place, before he died, he called this man who lived in his building and said, listen, you are a man of the church, you are a warden. He was a warden of Protestant church, please, here's the key and look after the building. And this man wanted to show us what he inherited. And for us, it was Garden of Eden.
But describe the building, describe what you saw when you...
Well, first you walk in and it was musty and it was dirty, but what really fascinated us most were the books. There was a shelf full of old, decaying books. At the same time, I was sort of reading a lot about Zen and about wabi-sabi, so the Japanese aesthetic of decay and beauty. And we didn't have too much time because with Katya you have to go by schedule. But when I came back to Canada, I could not sleep. Those books were sitting in my brain. So I called and I said, listen, I have to go back to those books. I haven't done really justice to them. So we went back to those books about 6 times.
You kept going back to the same place?
Yeah. Every time I went there, I discovered something new.
And the photographs that are in the exhibition are from each of the different towns.
Yeah. And then these books become a sort of guiding light for us. And everywhere we talk, somebody would tell us, hey, did you hear about this and this place? So we end up sometime in the middle of the field, middle of the forest, discovering a Jewish cemetery to which only gypsies knew how to get, Romans. So we befriended Romans and they took us there. We went there twice to the same cemetery because this kind of subject is not enough to see once.
You know, we were talking before and Daniel mentioned that he thought that in many ways, after you had taken it, you didn't really realize what you had done. You didn't realize what these photographs were initially, and even later in some cases.
Katya and myself, neither of us read Hebrew, and therefore when we look at them, we photograph them as we saw them. And of course, later on, people told us it was all upside down. But the most remarkable story was when we came to New York and we met Moshe Halbertal, and I was showing him small 8x10 prints. And on one of them he says, how clever of you to retouch this word into the book. I look at him, why would I do this? He said, well, it's obvious, you did it. I said, I'm sorry, but I just took books from one place to another and I photographed as they were. And he said, that's absolutely unbelievable. I said, why? Because that word in the middle of the book says, what remains.
What remains, Hadashar.
Yeah. And we were looking for a name.
Yeah. Was it there?
Yeah. At that very moment.
There you are.
Magic. So this kind of magics were happening. This was a magic trip.
So I wonder, Katya, whether you would share one other remarkable story of coincidence, if you don't mind, and that is the story of the woman who was in love with your father.
Well, that was on the third day of this trip. We went to see. I have to go back to the fact that I said to Yuri, I don't really mind who we go and see, because I don't know these people. I've never heard their stories. And so we went to this little town called Hodonín, and there was a lady all ready for us with her cake. And like so many Central European households, you know, there are the net curtains and the crystal bowls and the old photographs, if they have some. And she was very welcoming, and she talked about her story, which was, she was very sort of serene and very straightforward. And she talked about the fact that she was at a teacher's training college, and that one day the headmistress called her in this small town, and she said, I'm really sorry, but you can't come back, because as of yesterday I'm not allowed to have Jewish pupils, and I hope, you know, the times will change. Our families have been friends for a long time. And she said that as she walked out of the headmistress's office, she sort of felt her world had collapsed, and that everything that followed was just a continuation of that moment in the headmistress's study. And so she was on the second train, not the first train, but the second train. She saw her parents go into the gas chambers, and because she was young and strong, she survived. She was lucky, she didn't get sick. She worked in an office, she got extra food, and so she was, alas, unfortunately, well enough to go on the death march, because one forgets that only the people who were fit enough went on the death march. I assume most of you know about the death march. So she was on it from the very, very beginning. And she said 4 months later, I mean, she walked from January till till May. And at the very, very end, when nobody had any energy left and people just wanted to die, one morning they woke up and the Germans had gone, they had vanished. So I naively said to her, so it was the end of the war, did you celebrate? And she sort of looked at me and she said, you don't understand, we were dead bodies, we were not really human beings anymore. She said she just fell into a ditch and she slept for many hours, she wasn't sure how many, and when she woke up she thought she had heard some voices talking in Slovak, but after the Babylon of languages she wasn't sure. And sure enough, it was Slovak, and it was 2 men, and her friend survived, so they joined this group. And this one person who was leading them all seemed to be interested in only one thing, which was the future of building socialism in Czechoslovakia. And he talked about Hashomer Hatzair, and you know, he seemed to be able to just turn a page. It was all about the future. It was like nothing had happened in the past. And he told them that they all had to get to Lübeck, because Lübeck was where the Red Cross had repatriation center. And so this journey took 3 weeks, and it was, you know, lots of people died along the way still. And by the time they got to Lübeck, she realized that she would live because she was young and she was in love. And it was an extraordinary thing that she, you know, she hadn't washed, and she was not really a human being, but there was going to be a future. And so I don't know whether Yuri asked her or I asked her, I can't remember now, whether she married him, and she said, no, in the chaos of Lübeck we lost contact. And I said, but did you at least remember his name? And she said, of course I remember his name. His name was Martin Kraus. And we all just went absolutely silent and looked at each other. And I sort of took a deep breath and I said, Mrs. Grunstein, that was my father. And she turned around, that was the most amazing thing, is she turned around and she said, come here, Krauska, let me hug you, I could have been your mother. That was an absolutely incredible moment.